Thanks, Krista. I could not be prouder to be on stage with Julie, Krista, and Arif. We're really lucky to have such a great team. We're all working really, really hard together, and it's really just an honor. I'm obviously thrilled to be here too. When I look around and we're doing town halls from coast to coast to coast, and they're always packed. They're always packed with people who care. And this is really what it's about. It's about caring. I should recognize first that we're on the traditional territories of the Mississaugas of New Credit. And that's really important, because when we talk about climate change, it is impossible to talk about climate change without talking about the impact on Indigenous peoples, in particular in the Inuit, the impact on the Inuit. When I talk to my Inuit friends, it's not just an inconvenience for them. It's not just one weather event. It's ice roads that are melting. It's permafrost that's going. It's traditional foods that are disappearing. This is really impacting on their entire way of life and their culture. And we absolutely need to recognize and make sure that they are fully engaged in this discussion, both in terms of providing us with the traditional knowledge that we've ignored for so long, but also coming up with solutions with us.
Letting them say no! Letting them say no! Striking their powers.
Certainly, we need to listen to them. I want to recognize Jeff and the whole team here at Evergreen Brickworks. I had a chance to do a tour. It's the first time I've done it. It's really great to see such amazing space and the potential when you actually work very thoughtfully about sustainable living and what sustainable, urban living looks like. And so, real shout out. I think it's a model not just for Toronto, not just for Canada, but a model for the world. All right, so let's get down to the business. We're here to talk about climate change. As I said, I'm doing this across the country. Members of Parliament from all parties are doing this across the country, and you're welcome to do this with your friends and neighbors. And I'll talk a little bit about that because we have a toolkit that you're welcome to download, and you can do it with your faith group, you can do it with your friends, you can do it over a bottle of wine, you can do it over coffee. All right, so. It's funny because I can actually not really see much here. Maybe I'll just use this, so I'll just put this beside me. It's not that I haven't done this many times, but just important to know exactly what I'm saying here. I don't even have that first slide, so I'm just going to... it's fine, I can just... So, okay, basically all this says is that we need to have this discussion, we all need to be acting together. I've said that this is all about a discussion with all Canadians. By all Canadians, I mean with environmental groups, with industry, with youth, with Indigenous leaders, with all Canadians. And I really mean that because the problem in the past is we've often had discussions where everyone's in silos, working away, and we're not bringing people together. And really the only way we're going to actually be able to take serious climate action is if everyone, not everyone, because we're not going to get everyone, not everyone's going to be happy, but if most people feel like we're going in the right direction, that we're listening to them, that we're moving forward, and that we're serious. And so I'm working extraordinarily hard to make sure that everyone feels that they're part of this conversation, whether they're in town halls directly or whether they're interacting online. Try to be very active on social media. That's not everything, but certainly a way to engage. And we have lots of people who are providing their solutions directly to us. Okay, well, the good news is you have a government that believes that climate change is real. And it's also, it is man-made. I have some people who, hopefully there are no climate deniers. If there are climate deniers, we can go outside and have a conversation afterwards.
University road.
I think probably not. I sometimes have people who do say climate is always changing, but certainly we now have science. So one of the first things that happened when the Prime Minister was elected is he brought together all the premiers. I brought together scientists for Environment and Climate Change Canada, who did a presentation that was open to everyone. And it was about the science behind climate change. I don't need to tell you in this room that the temperature is rising. Year over year, we're seeing increases. That we now, the global temperature has risen by about just under 1 degree. But in Canada, because of our latitude, it's actually, we're closer to 2 degrees. And in the north, it's even more. And it's quite clear that this is it. This is our window. I feel this, that I feel this every day, that this is the challenge of our generation. If we don't act now, it will be too late. I was really honored to be named Minister of Environment and Climate Change. I almost fell off my chair when the Prime Minister asked me to take on the portfolio. Partly because my background was international, and I'd done work. I started a human rights NGO, so we'd done work on the environmental front, but it wasn't kind of the first thing that that was my expertise. And he also said, "And you're getting on a plane in 2 days to go to Paris." But I mean, what are you going to do? I thought, well, this is it. We have a real opportunity to reassert ourselves in the world, and it was really amazing. So first of all, you get to sit at a big table. It's got all the countries around the world, and Canada's right. Canada, the little tag is right there in front of. Was right there in front of me, and I did what my staff sometimes get very nervous about. I ad-lib. I do it all the time. And in the end, I said, like, Canada's back, but we're excited. Like, people were really excited that Canada was back. I talked about the science behind climate change, the fact that we all need to be working together, that we need to be ambitious, that we need to be supporting developing countries who need the financial support if they're going to be able to take action. And it's not their fault that we were out there in front developing, and it's not a bad thing to develop, but we did not realize the impact it would have on our climate. But the great news is that we were able to get an ambitious agreement in Paris. It was clear, when I got there, it was clear there was an agreement to be had, but the question was whether at all it would be ambitious. And so I'm very proud. We were there. I was there with the Prime Minister. We were there with premiers. We were there with opposition MPs. We were there with Indigenous leaders. We were there with environmental leaders. We were there with business leaders. We were there with youth. We had like a delegation that represented Canada, and everyone was working together to get this ambitious deal. And then what was the deal? Essentially the deal was every country agreed for the first time ever to do their part to tackle climate change. So that meant every country agreed that they were going to take domestic action to tackle climate change, that we needed to improve, that it was going to be tough. We agreed that we needed to strive. We needed to keep temperatures below 2 degrees, strive for 1.5 degrees. That the actions, while they were good actions, they were not enough, so that we would have to come back every 5 years and improve, and we would have to do it in a transparent way. And it was really incredible. So I don't know, there are very few people, and I challenge any of them to be naysayers about that agreement. It is not everything, but getting all the countries, 195 countries together to agree to an agreement like Paris, that is a moment in time that you do not get very often. And a lot of hard work was put into it. I was very proud to be one of the negotiators on the market text, which is an important piece of the agreement. But it was just a wonderful moment. But now we got to do our hard work here. So it's great. Kind of the next day it was like, okay, come home, and now we've got to do kind of the Paris in Canada. We've got to go, and each province and territory is different. We have to figure out how are we going to be serious and do our part to tackle climate change and meet our international obligations. So, I don't have to tell you this, but in Canada we are seeing the impacts of climate change. And I think that's why you're seeing that Canadians actually, are very serious about taking action against climate change. So, start at PEI. PEI is receding by an average of 43 centimeters a year. It's like small island states that we see that, some of the small island states, Marshall Islands, will be underwater 2 degrees. We are seeing extreme weather events, whether it's flooding, whether it's fires, whether it's droughts. That's happening across the country. The Parliamentary Budget Office it says that it's right now at $1 billion the cost per year for these extreme weather events, and it's only going to rise. And I've already talked about the North. We know, it is now a desperate situation in the North, and we need to act. So I spend a lot of my time looking at charts like this. So I don't know, hopefully you can see it. If you were going to be serious about how you're going to tackle climate change, for a long time everyone said, okay, just tell us what your target is. And I said, well, how about we focus on how we're actually going to figure out we're going to reduce emissions, and then we can know how ambitious we can be. So this is really important. So if you look at where our emissions are coming from, you'll see oil and gas, 26%. Then what's that?
Transportation.
Yeah, and then you've got 23% for transportation. You've got buildings, 12%. We have very inefficient buildings. Electricity sector, 11%. So electricity actually in Canada, 80% of it is clean because of hydro, nuclear, and other renewables. And then you have agricultural waste and others. But the only way you're going to be serious about reducing emissions is you figure out how you're going to reduce emissions in all of those different areas. Okay, so this is the chart that makes me think we need to really work very hard. It's a bit of a wake-up call for many people. So if you see, if you look at 2030, you can see the Canadian 2030 target. So you can see 524 megatons. The problem is, what direction are we going? We're going in the wrong direction. That's actually what happens if you don't do anything for 10 years. The previous government, when you have a target that's based on a 2005 target, and you do nothing for 10 years except go in the wrong direction, it's going to be very hard to bend the curve. So this is the challenge we have here. So when everyone says, like, oh, let's just come up with an ambitious new target, I mean, sure, I am always about being very ambitious, but I'm just a practical person, so I want to understand how we're going to meet or exceed that target in a very practical way. All right, so what have we been doing? I mean, some people say, well, you've done nothing. You just talk and consult. Well, no, actually, that's not true. And we've only been in government, I think that I've been in this portfolio just over 6 months. So the first thing that happened, first ever climate change meeting between the Prime Minister and the Premiers, where I said, as I talked about, we talked about the science behind climate change. Everyone agreed we needed to take action. We had the Paris conference, COP21. Then I had the first meeting of environment ministers focused on climate change. You can imagine that was a big shocker for them. They couldn't believe we were actually having that discussion. And I have to do a shout out to the provinces. They've really taken a leadership role. Ontario has been really amazing. We're going to see Glenn Murray. I spent a large portion of the day today with Glenn talking about what more we could do to tackle climate change together. Then we had the First Ministers meeting, another meeting with the Prime Minister and the Premiers, where they actually agreed to a work plan. So this meant that everyone agreed we needed to tackle climate change. Everyone agreed that carbon pricing was part of the solution to tackling climate change, and that we were going to have working groups. And I'll talk a little bit more about those, but these are technical groups that are working in the areas that I talked about where emissions are coming from. Then we went to Washington. And it wasn't just selfies. We had a very serious climate agreement. And one of the things that came out of that was we agreed with the US to reduce emissions, methane emissions from oil and gas by 40 to 45%. And just to put that in context, because I think, a lot of this is new and you think you just come to these agreements and it doesn't really mean anything. That's like taking all the cars off the roads of Ontario and Quebec. If we were able to extend that globally, that would be like closing 1/3 of the coal-fired plants. That is a big agreement. And I mean, what's great about it is actually it's one of the lowest cost, most efficient ways to reduce emissions. And there is innovation and there is technology that we need to be looking to help us find solutions. Then we had our budget, greenest budget ever, so you know about the green infrastructure. We also had public transit. Even on social housing, everything that is going to be built has to be energy efficient. I've said this, just because you don't have a lot of money doesn't mean you get a crappy building. We should be ensuring that social housing is the most efficient. We have money for innovation. There's a $2 billion low carbon economy fund that I will be using to work with the provinces to look at what are the biggest ways we can reduce emissions with them. So across the budget you will see that we are committed to a more sustainable future. Then we signed the Paris Agreement. That was really exciting. And it was amazing to see how many countries actually showed up to sign, and we're working hard for the agreement to be ratified. And we need a number of countries to sign on, but actually with some good signs with India, China, the US, I think it's looking good that it'll come into force quite soon. And now we're working towards the First Ministers meeting that's going to take place in the fall, where we have to have a plan. So these are the working groups that I've talked about. So there are 4 working groups, and they're on a specific theme. So carbon pricing, putting a price on pollution. It really is the most efficient way to reduce. Actually, actually were able, and it's difficult politically to do this, but if you only had a price on carbon around the world that actually was significant, that covered the major emissions, and it continued to rise, that would be all you need to do. We're not in that world yet. We're certainly working very hard. Clearly markets are part of the solution. When business looks at how they can reduce emissions, how they can innovate, and how do they make business sense, that's where you're going to see major reductions. Then there's mitigation, so other mitigation measures. So how do you reduce emissions in buildings? So more efficient buildings, electric vehicles, phasing out coal, oil and gas, or all those areas. So those are the working groups. Then you have adaptation and resilience. So we know that we need to adapt to the impacts of climate change. We have to build more climate resilient infrastructure. We need to be supporting different areas, whether it's flooding on the coast or looking at the north with permafrost melting. What does that mean for the builds? And then we have clean technology, innovation, and jobs. And I think this is what often is lost, and this is what Christian was talking about. That climate change, yes, it is a huge challenge, and we have a moral obligation to do it, but also it makes economic sense for us to be out looking at how we build a more sustainable future. I was just at a conference where I was speaking with Mark Carney, the former governor of the Bank of Canada. And he was talking about the $30 trillion opportunity, where? In China alone over the next few decades when it comes to working at reducing emissions, having solutions. So the solutions that we find here, we will be able to export, and they will be good jobs, and they will be the jobs of the future. And we really need to be focused on this. Unfortunately, we haven't been focused on it, so the clean tech sector is going down in terms of market share, but I can tell you, everyone is working extraordinarily hard. We're reaching out to the companies that are already out there. We're looking at how we invest in the future technologies, how we become the seed investors for high-risk investments that are going to find the solutions, where we're going to find the solutions of the future.
What about living tar sands in the ground?
All right, well, we'll talk about all of that. We'll have a chance. Everyone has a chance here. So the good news here, I'm going to finish soon. I know you're very bored of me. But I'm going to finish soon. And the purpose of this is actually to set the stage so that you guys can have discussions and you can give your solutions. I mean, that's really what this is all about. So here is what are we doing now, the process. So we're having town halls, as I said, across the country. The information, your solutions will all be fed back into what we have. We have an online portal. And why do we have, that sounds really boring, an online portal website, but I've said I don't care if you're the world's expert in clean technology or you're a kid who has a good idea. Every single person, expert group, has to put their solution online because I want it to be transparent. I want everyone to have an opportunity to see the solutions. I'm looking for unusual suspects to come together, business and industry. We've already seen a lot of that in the climate solutions that have been put up there. And then these are fed into the working groups. So they go to the relevant working groups so they can see what solutions are out there. You guys can go online now. It's Canada.ca/climate action. You can find the solutions there. Est-ce qu'il y a des francophones ici? Je m'excuse, j'ai pas parlé beaucoup en français. Alors, on est heureuse de parler en français après. But we have obviously a bilingual website, but you can go put your solutions up there. We are reaching out, as I said, through town halls, and you're welcome to do your own town halls. So the idea is that we get all of this information and that we look at what are the real solutions. Certainly, if you're interested in tweeting, join our Twitter campaign, #CanClimateAction. I think it's really important that everyone feels part of this. We're not going to get here, we're not going to be able to make the tough decisions unless people like you, Canadians across the country, are pushing politicians like me to be ambitious in how we tackle climate change. I think that's really my spiel. We have some questions up here, and I think, do you want me to talk about this? Okay, so I think the plan right now, because there are so many people here, sometimes what we do is we have tables, and you just break out at your table. It was just impossible to have tables, and that's a great problem to have because so many of you wanted to be part of this. But the best way that we found to do this is that if you just go into groups, so it could be like, I don't know.
I think they've been divided.
Oh, you've already been divided,
Do
okay.
people know their breakout groups? No. This way.
Well, you know what, it's fine. You know what, we don't have to be super formal about this. You guys look like you're a nice, like 10 of you in like rows, you can just turn around. and just talk to each other.
Kind of grouped in groups of 10. So
Okay.
you can see if they turned, if the first row
Right,
turned
okay,
around.
you're groups of 10. You know what, you all look like you're an organized bunch. Just find 10 people.
Can we ask you questions?
Yeah, I mean, I think though part of the reason I think people were coming here is actually, and part of the reason, we're all here is because we actually want to hear what you're focused on, what your issues are. Because it's very important that if your thing is, you're against the oil sands, or you think we need to have more efficient buildings, or, we need to have a price on carbon, that's the kind of information actually that is really helpful to us. So I think there may be a bit of time for questions, but because there's so many of you, I think that breaking into the breakout groups right now is important, and we will be circulating, so you have an opportunity, to ask us questions informally. So just bear with me. So you'll have an opportunity to break out into working groups. I think that we'll give you 15-20 minutes to talk about what are the things you think we need to do, what are the key actions that you want to see, and then each group will have you'll need a rapporteur, ideally someone who will also take some notes so that we can take them at the end. And then you will have 1 minute, and we're going to be very tough on this, I've done many of these. 1 minute, one person will say what are the areas that you want to see action on. And is this everything? No, because you're probably going to feel like you have more to say. As I say, go to the website, please put your solutions up there. I think that's it. It's so important that everyone be engaged, and I'm just so thrilled to see all of you here. It means that Canadians care, and for the first time, I actually feel like we have a real opportunity here, and we cannot waste it. So please stay engaged. Please give us your solutions. Please tell us what you would like to see.
Where's Minister Murray?
Question about the questions.
Can we talk to the minister?
I'm right here. Yeah. But maybe we can talk separately. You and I can talk separately. Yeah? Who had a question? Yeah?
Oh, I just have a question about the third question.
Okay.
Because I feel like it assumes that all of us think that economic growth is inherently a good thing. And a lot of climate experts, David Suzuki, many other people, have said that we need to actually reframe our whole paradigm around economic growth, and that fighting climate change and reducing emissions is incompatible with this sense of constant economic growth.
So if that's your feedback on that, it's not supposed to be a leading question, so if that's your point on that, feel free.